First tonight, Beijing says Australia, the US and the UK have disregarded the concerns of the international community and gone further down a dangerous road. The comments come a day after Joe Biden hosted Rishi Sunak and Anthony Albanese in California. The three leaders unveiled details of a defense pact that will provide Australia with nuclear-powered attack submarines. President Biden said the AUKUS pact would boost security in the Indo-Pacific in the face of Beijing's rising influence in the region. Monday's deal will provide Australia with 3 American-manufactured nuclear subs. Our chief correspondent John Cookson has the story.
Yesterday in San Diego, the US, the UK and Australia unveiled details of their plan for a new fleet of nuclear-powered submarines aimed at countering China's influence in the Indo-Pacific region.
So today, as we stand at the inflection point in history, where the hard work of enhancing deterrence and promoting stability is going to affect the prospect of peace for decades to come, the United States can ask for no better partners in the Indo-Pacific, where so much of our shared future will be written. Forging this new partnership, we're showing again how democracies can deliver our own security and prosperity, and not just for us, but for the entire world.
Under the so-called AUKUS pact, Australia is to get its first nuclear power subs, at least 3, from the US. The Allies will also work to create a new fleet using cutting-edge technology, including UK-made Rolls-Royce reactors. In another move, British Prime Minister Sunak is pledging to increase UK military funding by $6 billion in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the challenge posed by China.
Is China a threat?
China represents the biggest state threat to our economic interests, for sure, and is a systemic challenge for the world order. Now, that's why it's important that we take steps to protect ourselves.
The response from China has been swift. Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said, "The statement issued by the US, the UK and Australia shows the 3 countries have gone further down the wrong and dangerous path for their own geopolitical self-interest, completely ignoring the concerns of the international community." It takes around 8 years to design and build a new nuclear sub, by which time the world is likely to be a very different place. John Cookson, Arise News.
John Cookson joins me now from London for more on this. Good to see you, John. So a lot of tough rhetoric from both China and Russia about this AUKUS deal, warnings about nuclear proliferation. So would you characterize this moment as a moment of high diplomatic and rhetorical tension between China and the West?
Good to see you. Well, this AUKUS deal has been described as the biggest geopolitical deal this century because of the scale of what's being planned and the amount of money that's being spent. The Australians blowing a staggering $350 billion, in fact, a little bit more than that, $400 billion on defence, showing how keenly Australia is taking the situation in the Pacific at the moment and the potential threat from China. At the same time as all of this, we've had moves in recent days, have we not, between Moscow and Beijing, signaling a closeness of the 2 giants. And it's reported that President Xi may be visiting Russia very soon for a summit with President Putin. So it's all looking a little bit bleak, frankly, in terms of tensions that are scaling up. The potential threat, a potential all-out war between the 2 sides, East and West, is not for now. It's for years ahead, if hopefully not at all. But certainly, these are worrying developments. The Chinese accusing the British, the Americans, and the Australians of creating a new Cold War era and saying that they're pursuing their own self-interests. Now, as a person who lived through the Cold War of the 60s and 70s, I can say that they were at times scary moments, for example, during the Cuban Missile Crisis. But at day's end, because America and Russia are both nuclear powers, they realized that, one rocket one way will bring another rocket another way, and suddenly they both annihilate each other. So the nuclear threat was a deterrent. But certainly these are concerning days, I must say, and it'll be very interesting to see what comes out of the planned summit between President Xi and President Putin.
I mean, John, it's only a few submarines. I mean, and of course, these nuclear submarines are going to take ages to build, aren't they? I understand they won't be delivered till the 2030s. Meanwhile, China's military is massive. I mean, are these subs really going to make any difference, or is this an annoying road bump for them?
I think they could make a difference, and we should also point out that these nuclear subs are nuclear powered, but they won't be firing nuclear weapons. They'll be firing cruise missiles. The Australians getting 3 in the short term, and maybe 6 if they need them. But there is a whole fleet, Charles, being built. But as you say, not released to the rest of the world till at least the 2030s, even the 2040s. So I'll go back to the point that I made earlier, that the threat from China is there, but it's in the future, and it may well be 20 years from now that things start really getting critical. Although I have to say that Biden has promised a military response if China invades Taiwan, for example, in the near future. So I think it's more than a bump in the road. I think the 3 nations are gearing up for something in the future. We know not what. Certainly, as I say, Australia is spending so much money on defense, and of course they will be in the front line, for example, if China invades Taiwan.
And of course, John, against the backdrop of all this, you touched briefly on it earlier, you've got the Ukraine war and the question of whether China is going to send weapons to Russia, because, I mean, China's got a lot of weapons and Russia's running out of them. Is there a risk here that the angrier China gets with the US and the West, and of course the AUKUS trio, the more it might be tempted to cozy up to Russia and help Moscow out of the rut of the Ukraine war?
You make a very good point, Charles, and China's already sending some military equipment to Moscow, like flak jackets, and no weapons at the moment. But China could quite secretly, if it wanted to, get weapons to Russia, and maybe that's the route that they may choose. And as you say, Russia seems to be needing more weaponry to try to win this conflict. And we talk about wars in the future and the superpowers at war, but to me, there is a clear and present danger right now as far as the Eastern European war is concerned, because this Ukraine war could just so easily turn very bad. And Russia, we don't know what's in Putin's mind, how he wants to develop things in the coming weeks and months. He's got to try and win some more territory to sell the idea of the war to the Russian people. So things just generally very fraught in that part of the world. And then on top of that, Charles, we have the other rogue states of the world, like Iran, North Korea, which is a nuclear power, and Iran chasing nuclear weapons. Really, if you think too carefully about it, you'll have sleepless nights.
John, thank you ever so much. We're always much the wiser after your analysis. John Cookson, Arise Chief Correspondent, talking to me there from London.